Now the world don't move to the beat of just one drum. What might be right for you may not be right for some. A man is born, he's a man of means. Then along come two, they got nothing but the genes. They got different strokes it takes, different strokes it takes, different strokes to move the world.
Welcome back to the show, 30 minutes or less, where we'll be talking about the Diff'rent Strokes episode, The Peacemaker. Diff'rent Strokes, this was a classic show. Poe, did you watch this show as a kid?
I loved it.
This show ran from 1978 until 1986. So this was from before I was born until I was basically like a functioning adult.
Wow, latchkey kid, huh?
Quite famously, the story of Philip Drummond, who adopted these two kids named Gary and Todd to live in his Park Avenue house. Rusty, what do you think of this show as a child?
Gary and Todd.
Well, I don't remember what was the what was.
Hold on. Arnold and Willis.
Arnold and Willis.
What you talking about, Ed? Oh no! I'm really early for it, but
what was the connection that Mr. Drummond had to Arnold and Willis?
That's a great question because I don't think I knew it until just recently.
It was something with he knew his mom, right? Did she work for him?
Yes. The mother was the housekeeper. So he wasn't like the guy from Punky Brewster who was just trolling vacant buildings looking for children to be his daughter.
So he just really is a great guy.
Yeah, he is.
Wow.
Philip Drummond, played by Conrad Bain. Mm. Now, don't you think Conrad Bain is a better rich name than Philip Drummond is?
Yeah,
yes,
for sure.
The series was devised as a starring vehicle for him. It's never, all these 80s sitcoms, it's never the star you think it's going to be.
Wow.
Original title, 45 Minutes from Harlem.
Oh,
that's a bad title.
That is a horrible title.
We almost named our show that.
Famous for its very special episodes, Diff'rent Strokes was. I always think about the one where he got bit by a dog and was going to get rabies.
Oh.
And he got all those shots, remember?
Yeah, I feel like Diff'rent Strokes made me worried about a lot of things that I didn't probably have to be worried about. Mm-hmm. Also a high anxiety show.
Yeah, very much so.
It definitely made growing up seem more difficult. Like you were going to encounter bullies on like a regular basis. Like Gooch was around the corner waiting for you.
Mm-hmm.
The Gooch, famously known as an unseen character. I like the idea on shows of unseen characters. You know, like on Frasier, you never meet Niles' wife.
My So-Called Life, Tino,
Pedge, Peep Show. Also starred Dana Plato, tragic story.
Oof.
Killed in a night trap.
She
was in a video game called Night Trap.
For the Sega CD fans out there.
For the Sega, she was actually one of the very first celebs in a video game, along with Mark Hamill in the Wing Commander series. Back then, it was so low rent to be in a video game. Now, it's like Brad Pitt just begged to be one in Stardew Valley. They were like, get the fuck out of here.
I think there's a few other tragic stories with the kids from...
There are. Here's one thing that caught my eye. Dana Plato, born November 7th, also my birthday. Do you know that she tried to rob a video store with a pellet gun in 1991?
I do remember that.
And the clerk called 911 after she left and said, I've just been robbed by the girl who played Kimberly on Diff'rent Strokes.
I feel like that was on like Entertainment Tonight in my household or something like that.
Here's the tragic thing. She went back to the store to return the money, which is when she got caught.
No.
I've known a few people who've had experiences like this. They tried to go back and return the thing, and then they got caught.
Whoa.
I remember her mugshot.
Her bail, $13,000, paid by Wayne Newton.
That's random.
Who knows what that story?
He fucked her.
Wonder what that drive was like on the way home. Very disappointed.
They had to have worked on something together when she was like a child actress, when she was younger, before Diff'rent Strokes.
Another tragic thing, Rusty, did you see that the day before she died, she was on the Howard Stern show?
Yes.
And got some abuse from Howard and the gang and some callers. Although some callers did come to her defense, but she killed herself the next day.
Oh!
Howard should be on trial for murder.
Isn't there more to the story? As she was dying, didn't her like boyfriend just didn't care, didn't call paramedics or something?
I don't know. At the end of her life, her and her boyfriend lived in a trailer.
Yes.
I feel like that's such cramped quarters to ignore someone dying, even if you want to.
Well, maybe no. He was probably like, well, then I get the trailer to myself.
That's true. That's true.
Did she die in Florida? Is that what?
She actually died in Nevada, I guess.
And then Todd Bridges also. Like,
oh,
was
my
arrested.
God, yeah. Let me scroll down to my Todd Bridges stuff. This was some amazing stuff. He was arrested for attempted murder of Tex, a Los Angeles area drug dealer. What are the odds Tex still alive? 1%? Do you know that his case, he was represented by Johnny Cochran?
Wow, he can afford a big time lawyer, huh?
He could at the time.
Yeah.
But a little redemption. In 1998, Todd Bridges and his brother, James, were credited with saving the life of a paraplegic woman who was fishing, and she had a wheelchair at the end of a dock, and she fell in.
Some real nerve, that woman.
She fell in. That seems like the kind of thing you might
wow, that's
stage.
A real big fish.
You might stage.
I feel like that's the way you would go if you were a paraplegic. You love fishing.
That's true. Would you ever like to save a life? Would you ever like to save a life?
Of course. That's probably a huge like adrenaline rush.
Poe, would you? I already have many times.
Oh.
Gary Coleman.
Oh.
He was 4'8". That's actually not that short.
Oh, yeah?
Not
on Tinder.
Rusty, you would like this. He tragically lost $200,000 on an arcade that he opened.
Yeah.
Not a great investment.
Oh my God.
He opened it in like 94 when the arcade market died.
Well, you know what? He would do great in this day and age.
He would. That's my big regret about all this. The way things turned out. He'd probably be like Secretary of Defense. He was a big fan of the railroad, Amtrak, collecting trains, and even built like a life-size train set at the height of his fame. Never a good investment.
Again.
Never a good investment.
Life-size?
One other thing that I think is kind of interesting about the tragedies, there was 2 different shows made that were about fictionalized versions of what happened on Diff'rent Strokes. And on one of them, Todd Bridges plays a drug dealer who sells drugs to his actual younger self, the guy playing him.
Oh.
So a bit of a meta moment there.
Was he clean? So now he's like clean?
He's clean as a whistle.
I'm going to hit up NA meetings, see if I can meet him.
Dude, let's all go. Let's fan out.
Isn't there some mysterious circumstances surrounding Gary Coleman's death? Like,
there are, yeah, because he died in a fall. And
in his kitchen, right?
I think so.
He was trying to get the cookies on the top of the fridge. I'm sorry.
And apparently, it was one of those things where I think he got pulled off life support too early.
Oh.
You know?
Isn't that why people targeted his wife at the time as somebody that could be a suspect that was looking for his money? He still had to have some money left, right?
I highly doubt it. It was saying that he got into a fight with a woman who harassed him when he was working as a security guard. And he was working as a security guard for many years.
Oh, damn. Wasn't he trying to
Low
make
center
a
of
comeback?
gravity. That's the key.
Wasn't he trying to make a comeback? Didn't we see
perpetually,
him in some
yeah.
stuff?
He appeared with Mr. Drummond in character on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Whoa.
Didn't he appeared on The Simpsons, which kind of gave him a boost to his career again, right?
I guess so, yeah.
On the Christmas special. I think he played a security guard on that.
Now, Janet Jackson was on this show?
Oh.
Yes, she was Willis's girlfriend.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Now let's get into this episode, right?
Okay.
Unless Russ, you have anything else to say about this?
I like that you just threw that random tidbit out there and you're moving on to the episode.
Well, I do have a question. Do you think that they all had drug problems? Like you think there was a specific vibe on the set that led to this?
Here's the thing I read. It said that Dana Plato was basically doing drugs from the beginning. Respect. But it said that Willis didn't get into drugs until after. So then I was like, are they barely hanging out on set? Like, he never goes to her trailer and just like, oh, what's this about? You know, let me try it.
Wasn't the funny thing, wasn't Nancy Reagan on an episode where she promoted the Say No to Drugs?
Quite famously, yes.
Yeah. So what did Dana Plato do in that when that was happening?
Dude, she robbed her bag when she was filming. It was really controversy.
Oh, boy.
We love pointing out the linkages between all these shows we talk about. Quite 2 huge ones.
Linkages.
Two huge linkages. That's our catchphrase. Poe loves it.
Linkages.
Remember the theme song? Who's singing that theme song?
Who?
Alan Thicke.
To this one too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
Well, he didn't sing the other one.
Yeah, he didn't sing the Facts of Life song. He wrote it.
Oh, he wrote it. Oh, well,
Yeah.
he just has his hand in a lot of theme songs.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Sometimes he's singing it, and sometimes he's like the Machiavellian guy behind the scenes, pulling the strings.
Wow, so crazy. Wow, that just makes me have a whole new appreciation.
Now, this episode we're discussing today is called The Peacemaker. Huge guest star.
Oh,
And Rusty, do you remember what season and episode this was?
It was 80.
4?
It was 1982. It was, I don't know which episode.
Season 4. I think it was like 420, actually.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Wow.
They all knew what that was. Nah, probably not.
Now, when you said big guest star, at the time he wasn't a big guest star.
True. This is actually his first television appearance.
Wait, MASH wasn't first? MASH was after this?
There's a very poorly written IMDb trivia, which is all one sentence, that says a few days later he was on MASH. I don't know if we should believe this person or not, but... And we're talking about Andrew Dice Clay. I don't know if we already said that.
No, we did not say it.
No, we
The
didn't.
Dice Man.
It's the Dice Man. He was on MASH?
Wait,
He was on MASH.
Wow.
isn't the other guest on this episode, isn't he kind of well known?
He is, but we weren't not going to touch that yet. We're not
Okay.
touching that yet. Because
I think we're going to butt some heads on that one. Or not butt
We
head,
are.
but yeah.
we both have great trivia about that, and we're going to
Uh-huh.
see. We think it's the same item.
It's definitely,
but,
because it's definitely the same.
okay, but before we go on, me and Poe were talking about Andrew Dice Clay and how we didn't know his history.
Mm.
And so, Rusty, I told you to get a little history lesson for us. So, hickory dickory dock, Rusty's on the fucking clock.
I don't know about you, but everybody knows Andrew Dice Clay in the 80s was huge, especially the late
Huge.
80s.
Yeah.
Sold out Madison Square Garden.
First comedian to do that 2 nights in a row.
Yes.
So insane.
Were you a fan, either of you?
No.
No.
No, not at all.
We were too young also. And like, I think we were pure enough to be like, this is awful.
Yeah.
This is
But-
like,
But a lot.
Oh, sorry.
what?
I was just going to say, at the time, a lot of comedians were doing the same kind of shtick. So it's not like he was, one of the few there.
Yeah.
Like you had the Sam Kinison, the Bill Hicks, the Eddie Murphy, the Richard Pryor. They were all
Yeah.
kind of lumped
but
together.
like he was just he was not that funny.
Yeah.
Richard Pryor was funny. Like
Yeah.
a lot of those guys that you just mentioned were actually writing good jokes. His whole thing was he was just a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And it was like, then you just get away with whatever because you're like, it's this character, it's satire,
Yeah.
satire.
But for a while, it was his character because he didn't develop the Dice Man until later.
But we're talking about the Dice Man.
Yeah, we're talking about the Dice Man now, but when he first started as a comic, it was more of a character. It was part of his act, and then it became the act.
He got Bobcat goal weighted.
He did, but see, Bobcat actually dropped it, and still is somewhat successful. He still does comedy, but Andrew Dice Clay was never able to drop the Dice Man moniker.
We mentioned him on an Archers of Horror episode. Whoops. We mentioned him on a
A Viewmasters episode.
Viewmasters episode. And I went back and watched like 2 minutes of his set, and I don't shock easily. But it was so hateful that I was like, I mean, like Eddie Murphy Raw has a lot of stuff that has not aged well, but like this was like incitement to violence against like every
Were you
punching
like
down.
turning it down in your own home?
Oh my God, yes.
Well,
like looking around in your own home, like, oh God.
Well, he was famously banned from MTV for his 3-minute set at the 1989 MTV Movie Awards.
Really? What happened there?
Well, he did his nursery rhyme. He started with that, but then he did a minute on how he would fuck a fat woman.
Mm-hmm.
And listening to it now, you're going to be uncomfortable. It's just like he was doing this on MTV in 1989.
Wow.
But so what I gathered from watching him on this episode, it made me think, oh, he probably wanted to be an actor. Like he wanted to be taken somewhat seriously. He probably fell into this Dice Man situation because he was like, oh, this is working.
It could happen to any of us.
That's fucking like a little bit crazy to like run with this depraved character and then like have everyone virtually hate you and not know if you're a piece of shit person. It's punch down comedy.
So much punch down. Like so much punch. Like it's insane.
It's murder. It's American History X comedy.
Do either of you remember when he was on Arsenio Hall when he went to promote Adventures of Fort Fairlane? On that episode, he actually broke character and was trying to talk about the real Andrew Silverstein.
Mhm.
And the crowd kept laughing at him because they thought that was a bit, but he's like tearing up.
Let me say this, because I always believe that you could take yourself and put yourself. No, I get choked up because you put yourself where you want to be. And you want... No, wait a minute.
And a week later, Sam Kinison went on Arsenio Hall show, and he had a feud with Dice Clay, and he just ripped into him.
Really?
Oh, that's
I might check out
beautiful.
both these clips.
Yeah, that sounds great.
I was never into Sam Kinison either. Were either of you?
I hate
Me too.
Yeah.
I hated him so much. I hated the way he looked. I hated his
Yeah.
scream.
Whoa.
I hated his jacket.
He looked like the mom in Goonies.
Yes. Wait, not the mom.
Yeah,
Oh, she is a mom.
Yeah,
The villain
she's
lady.
a
Yeah,
mom.
Mother Fratelli and
Yeah.
Ramsey. Do you
No
remember?
other mom in that show.
No, there's the mom, the main mom.
Oh,
Yeah,
she's like not there.
she's there enough. Do you remember the music video that Sam Kinison had for Wild Thing?
Oh, yes. Now I do.
And he had like all like rockers at the time, like Billy Idol and like one of the guys from Aerosmith and stuff. And he's like rolling around with Jessica Hahn.
So far, this episode has been you, Rusty, reminding me of really horrible things that I forgot and that I did not want to remember. Jesus.
Ed has material for his next therapy session.
I do. I was like, oh, it's good. I never want to go back. I'm like, well, I can't go back anyway. So,
You don't know that. You don't know that.
quick break. Do you want some more smoothie real quick?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Rusty, quick break, but you can talk if you want.
Well, is anybody listening to me, or I just have free reigns right now?
No, we're listening. We're just getting more of the smoothie.
This might stay in now. His career though? He kind of died out, and his career bounced back when he had this phony on-air feud with Opie and Anthony. You remember that show?
Oh yeah, didn't he die in a tragic helicopter accident?
Who?
Sam Kinison?
No, car crash.
Oh.
There's a story that he was like dying, like bleeding out or something. He was like telling his friend that survived, like he didn't want to go this way and he didn't want to die. But
well, how did he want to go? Fucking
well, he just
yelling at
started,
people?
his career just started to
Skyrocket, yeah.
Yeah.
And he had just become sober and he got hit by a drunk driver.
Yep.
Oh.
Final Destination much?
Oh,
Actually, that should have been in Alanis Morissette's "Ironic," the song.
the other thing, wasn't he just in A Star Is Born, which also now brought his career back? Andrew Dice Clay,
Oh, was he? I didn't watch it.
and he beat out Robert De Niro for the part. How crazy is that?
What?
Yeah, Andrew Dice Clay is beating out Robert De Niro.
That's how you know that the people running the studios now are our age and are into some way too like ironic hipster fucking bullshit. Like that's not the right move there.
Hey, his career like bounced back again. Like he was all but dead.
Remember he had like a show for a while? What
Yeah,
was-
I don't remember the name of it.
6 feet
Yeah.
under.
All right,
Let's get into this episode.
the Peacemaker.
The Peacemaker.
Do you remember this episode when you were younger? Either of you?
Not at all. Not at all.
No.
Neither do I.
I don't really have any recollection of like a specific thing. I just like really remember all the characters and how I felt. And I think I spent a lot of time imagining myself living there.
Yeah.
Because I wanted
On
to
the
so
staircase.
bad.
That staircase.
And I remember fantasizing about beating up that little redhead bulkhead
Sam.
motherfucker that shows up. Yeah.
Yes,
Boy.
Mr. Drummond.
Yeah. But then he like really redeemed himself on Salute Your Shorts.
Oh, he did. Danny Cooksey.
Yeah.
He was
That
also
guy.
in Terminator 2. He was the friend.
Oh, yeah.
And the heavy metal band Bad for Good.
One weird thing about so in the opening scene, Pearl, the housekeeper,
Pearl.
is on the phone. Now, I only remember Mrs. Garrett and Pearl, but there's actually another housekeeper in the
Yes. Yes, there was. She was like really old.
I can't picture her at all.
She always had the bun. She had like the bun in the back of her head. She was probably shorter than Gary Coleman.
Oh,
It sounds hot, but I don't remember it. Now, everyone is hungry. Everyone's starving. But Pearl is on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
She's having some dispute with someone about a bowl. And eventually the kids, they get sick of waiting for breakfast. They march over and they take the pancakes off this plate. My first question for you is, didn't you hate the way they grabbed the pancakes with their hands? Like something weird about it.
I have a confession for you. My episode didn't start with that.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I had the same problem.
It started with the phone call.
Yeah.
Where he was negotiating the bowl.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's fun. Thank you, because I was watching it and I was like, boy, it just starts like this. They really throw you in.
Did you watch it on Dailymotion?
Yeah, we listened to the same one.
So this woman gets on the phone. He intercedes on Pearl's behalf and negotiates well with this guy. Now, here comes a great reference. They say, "Who are you, Philip Habib?" What? I guess he was the guy who negotiated the end to the war in Lebanon.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
A very timely reference that totally is lost on us now.
Yeah.
Now, another question here is when Arnold says, "Under whose bed?" about the bowl. Was that a joke about chamber pots?
Yeah.
Okay. Wasn't sure.
Well, you should set it up so when people listen to this, they know what.
Oh yeah, Rusty, can you explain that joke? I can't remember exactly, but I know you have the notes.
I don't have that. No, I didn't see that, so I don't even have the audio for that, so I can't even play the clip.
Ooh.
We're fucked on this on this part.
Well, I had this whole story about
chamber pots. Why you had a chamber pot as a kid?
No, I had someone staying with me for a couple months, and she was like downstairs and I was upstairs. So obviously I'm not going to walk past her to go pee all the time. So I was just peeing in all kinds of buckets upstairs. And whenever I see her, she's like not famous, but moderately, she does stuff. Whenever I see her pop up, I think, I wonder if she ever says to people, I once stayed with a guy who's just peeing in buckets all night and loving it.
Did you empty them the next day or you let it accumulate a bit?
Of course I emptied them the next day.
I don't know. You're a savage with some things.
So wait, I don't understand. Why were you peeing in buckets?
Because it was a loft and it was all one room. And I was upstairs and she was downstairs. And it's like metal stairs, like clonk, clonk, clonk. It's a really long walk too. I think I peed in buckets even without her. I just, when she got there, I was like, well, someone now. It's like,
Got it.
I do recall quite a few years ago, but when we were playing like Call of Duty, you would be peeing in a glass as we were playing because you didn't want to leave the action.
Wow.
Now, the next scene, we're at the school.
Yeah.
Great location. And Kimberly is being shown a bunch of fake jewelry from this guy, Marco, who's like the New York City street guy archetype. Or it's not, it's stolen. Yeah.
It's hot.
Yeah. Well, he opens his locker and is like, hey, check out all this jewelry. Which, how does that not get confiscated?
Yeah. My biggest question, though, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go. Why is Kimberly at this school? Didn't she go to that private school that's from Facts of Life?
She did, but then she came home from it because Mrs. Garrett found her troubling.
Having grown up in the suburbs, the school kind of scared me. Like when you saw that on sitcoms back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
I always thought New York City schools all of them were just dangerous.
God, you guys are little bitches.
We are.
You didn't you go to a private school?
Only for high school, bitch.
Well, that's the only one that matters.
No.
You know when elementary school is going to shoot you.
Yes, they will. Have you not seen our country?
Whoops.
Haven't watched the news in the last 5 years.
So Marco, so we're always talking about the linkages between shows here. This is a huge moment. Rusty says that he has the same bit of trivia that I do.
How?
Brace yourself, Rusty, because there's no way that you do.
I do. I know exactly what you're going to do.
Marco was played by an actor.
Arya Gross,
son of Dr. Francis B.
I'm not gross.
That's not true. That's the host of Face of Death. That's for 15% of the listeners.
Wow.
Anyway.
Everyone who went to college saw that.
Oh, shit. Anyway, Arya Gross, how does he connect, Rusty, to our other shows?
It connects to the Wonder Years episode.
Yes.
Which one? Well, the first one, the pilot episode.
Yes. Fuck, he knows it.
Yeah.
I thought only I knew this.
He was the original narrator, and they have you could listen to the intro with him.
I can't believe this. Yeah.
I knew. As soon as you said that, you had a connection. I knew we both had the same freaking connection.
This guy had one of the biggest careers out of anyone involved in this show.
Yeah, the second I saw his face, I went, "Whoa, young version of this guy." I've really now seen his whole career.
Mm-hmm.
I've watched him age.
We're gonna do a show about him.
Yeah, we have to. We should send him a letter.
Are You Gross? Episode 1.
What? Wait, is that the podcast he has? He has a podcast, right?
I didn't know that.
Whoa.
He has a podcast, and when I saw that he had one, my first thought was, it can't be interesting. There's just no way this guy has an interesting podcast, but he probably does.
Great. Now you just alienated
good
potential friendship that we were going to have.
Smash him. Rusty, tell us more about what happens in this scene, because a lot of plot occurs.
Well, Kimberly, I guess being a bit naive, is very much interested in one of these pieces of jewelry.
She has a crazed look in her eyes.
She really does.
In this scene.
It's clear that she, growing up in a very affluent household, doesn't understand how real life works.
Yes,
but Willis, who has a bit of street knowledge, sees what's going on and pulls Kimberly away from the action. And he explains to Kimberly what's going on, and she's just like, "Really, it's hot?" And he's like, he has a little joke there.
Yeah, he says something about you need a fire permit. He says permit very strangely, though.
Yeah, he does.
Wow.
Then what happens, Rusty?
Then Willis walks over to his locker, which he just happens to be locker mates with this school tough who looks like he might be like 30 years old.
Yes, exactly. The school tough played by Andrew Dice Clay.
Yes, but it also
all of those guys look super old.
The guy that he's feuding with, excuse me.
Yeah, that guy
looked like the uncle from Secret of My Success. I don't even remember that, but he looked like he was like in his 40s.
He really was.
I always loved like the
beer belly.
He did.
I always love like like where you have the bully, but then his lackeys look like the least tough guys. There's like the redhead guy that looks like Ron Palillo.
Yeah, they were like welcome home Cotter. Dude.
Yeah, it's like, who's this guy like roughhousing with?
Welcome back. The brutal thing about the red-haired guy is he's mostly blocked throughout the whole scene by other people's bodies, and I was like, he must have been really frustrated by that.
And then they just make fun of. Don't they make fun of him at one point for like, you're just a redhead? I don't know. Maybe I.
So anyway, there's some feud about a locker. I didn't quite understand exactly what
it was. An extra locker to store stolen goods from. So they didn't get caught. If they got caught, it wouldn't be linked to them.
I see.
So Willis was just in a predicament because he just happened to be next to them.
Yeah. So he tries to intercede, and before they start fighting, he tries to come up with a solution that they're going to use the lockers on different weeks or whatever, and he'll hold the key.
Not his best.
This is like him trying to emulate his father that he idolizes, and is like, you know what? My dad was just a great peacemaker on the phone earlier. Now I'm going to do that. And he's a little bit in over his head.
Yeah,
big time. He just doesn't know what to do. So yeah. So what happens?
Well, then, so they agree to those terms, and then Andrew Dice Clay says, like, this better work out, or this. And then he bangs his fist into the locker.
And they zoom in.
Yeah, Will's like, look at the fist in weird way. It's like, it's a really weird moment. Again,
it's like
a visual podcast.
Bad blocking.
Yeah,
there was no recoil on that punch. He just punched that locker and just held it there.
Exactly. Yeah, it was really awkward. So then we cut to the next scene where Mr. Drummond is wearing his good luck suit, but it's a little snug. Arnold says, "You've got some pot," which I guess means pot belly. Kind of a weird line.
Really? Is that what that meant?
Yeah, I think so.
I didn't even notice that.
Doesn't it suck when you're like wearing something and it's too tight and you're like, it's too tight, but I'm just going to ignore that?
Well, that was like your jeans that you wore recently.
That was, yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. Story there.
On a date?
Yep.
Ooh.
On the date. Well, it was because I ripped my pants. I've been meaning to switch them out. And I had new ones, but I hadn't worn them yet. And they were like smaller than I ever wear. And then that first night, I walked in that place. I looked like a cowboy. I was sauntering in.
And do you ever mistakenly buy like I could ask this to you as well, like a t-shirt has no stretch to it. So it's like almost like a girdle.
No.
You never made that mistake, Ed?
Oh yeah, of course.
Is it? And it's like, it's almost like you can't breathe in it. Like it's like so restrictive.
God, you guys.
I know.
So then we're back, like
I like moving along.
Classic sitcom in that we jump right from like the pointless, it like cuts away from Mr. Drummond. Like there's a quick pointless scene just to go back to the school. They should have just stayed in the school. And some time has gone by and stuff has been stolen out of Andrew Dice Clay's locker. And they believe that Willis is a thief.
Because he's the only one with the key, which, those guys are
Makes
probably
sense.
not that smart anyway.
Very reasonable.
Yeah. Occam's razor.
Andrew Dice Clay says, when I settle a school, it stays settled. Kind of a weird.
Oh,
This is before he really came into himself,
don't play dumb. Oh.
So now Marco sees that Willis is in some hot water. He comes over and he tells him that he needs to get some protection. He needs a gun. And
which Marco has in his waistband.
yeah, just like aiming at his wiener.
Unbelievable.
The funniest about that though is it's clear where he's going with that, but Willis still seems shocked even when the gun is in his hand. Like he didn't quite get it.
He was kind of waving it around in school, which I thought,
yeah.
Yikes, Willis, put that gun away.
A lot of waving a gun in school happening in this episode. But when I gotta say, I'm all for gun control and don't own any guns. But when he said $85, I said I'll buy it.
Well, but then he said he would rent the gun to him
for $20.
for $20.
Yeah.
That's a classic taking advantage of people with no money.
Yeah,
because that's
how poor people stay poor.
Exactly. It's like a rent-a-center.
Do you remember when people would get caught bringing weapons to school?
Yep.
It seemed like the punishment was never harsh enough.
Oh my God, I hate that we lived in a pre-Columbine era because.
Do you?
You remember? That? No, but you remember the kid who was like out to get me, and he got caught with a gun in school and didn't even nothing happened.
Really?
They were like, stay home for 2 days.
Wow.
He was also later caught with a samurai sword.
Yeah, he was like threatening. Threatening to shoot me. And I was like, well,
see, none of this happened in my New York City school ever. Just so you know.
New York City
the
private
only
school.
time, in my public school too, and all of my friends who went to public school never happened either. But all that happened was a lot of after school fights.
Oh yeah.
But when I lived in Miami for 1 year, that was when people were constantly bringing razor blades. Yeah. A lot of razor blade bringing to school.
Wow. I've always found razor blades very unappealing. Just the way they look, like don't want to touch it. Like that would never be my weapon if I was a real criminal.
What would be your go-to weapon? I'm curious now.
Bazooka, dude. Get the job done.
You try to set up that bazooka to shoot somebody, you'd be just mauled to death.
You knew that Marco had a big future. The way he delivered the line, "You're doing the smart thing here, Willis." Yeah, a certain kind of gravity. You're like, I know he's full of shit, but I almost feel like Willis is doing the smart thing the way he said it. Next scene. So now Willis comes home and he's immediately showing Arnold the gun.
Well, here's where we need some comic relief in the episode.
Yeah. And it's still loaded, which is insane.
This might be a naive question. Are there safeties on like revolvers like that?
Not naive at all. Yeah. Every gun has a safety.
Yeah.
Okay.
I personally see to that myself. I don't even know what I'm saying.
As mayor.
Mother of Pearl, another weird joke by Arnold.
Well, that would make sense, though.
Yeah, I guess so. But anyway, so this is kind of a long scene where they're in their room, kind of freaking out about how Willis says these guys might come to their place and get them. Arnold says he's afraid of the rub out guy. Kind of love that 30s mob terminology.
Like you live in a Park Avenue.
Oh yeah,
with like a doorman.
Talking about
yeah, exactly.
What are you talking about? But that just goes, to show fear is irrational.
Exactly. They hear some sounds. They start freaking out. They're like, let's take the gun downstairs.
Yeah. Which was a great scene.
Great scene because we love on this show, which I believe is called 30 Minutes or Less. We love when there's a non-traditional sitcom shot, like that zoom and Out of This World. The shot when they're coming down the stairs with the gun, like, wow, woo, I was electrified.
I felt like that was a shot they never had on that show where it was like the viewpoint of on top of the stairs like that.
Yeah, I don't think they ever did either. The thing is, in the next shot, you could see the shadow of the camera. So it's like they shot that live, I guess. But yeah, pretty scary scene, huh?
It was actually effective.
They come down with the gun because they've heard this sound. Of course, it's Mr. Drummond coming home. And Rusty, tell us what's happening now.
Wait, where was Mr. Drummond supposed to be? Because I think I missed that.
He was at the biggest negotiation of his career.
Is that how they set it up? So this episode's pretty much about negotiations all around.
Yeah, it is kind of all about negotiations. It is called The Peacemaker. Anyway, Willis comes down. He sees
Mr. Drummond's fumbling with some stuff from his office.
Mm-hmm.
Kimberly hits the lights, and Mr. Drummond says, "Don't shoot," drops to the floor.
Yeah. And Will's aiming right at him. What if he shot him and that was the last episode? He shot him and they just like start screaming and then it ends.
What if he became the paraplegic and he was the one fishing and that's who they save?
Too far. Bridge too far.
No.
But they don't shoot him. Mr. Drummond is upset about the gun, but almost a little understanding. Willis kind of hardens immediately. He's like, I need it for my protection. Kind of interesting play on that line. But so then Mr. Drummond comes to the school with Willis to find out what's going on here.
Good parenting.
He's going to confront Andrew Dice Clay. Willis is like, whoa, hold on. That's Crazy Larry. Mr. Drummond says, what is he going to do? Stab me with his sideburns?
Oh, that got a big laugh.
Loved it.
Yeah.
But then once everyone's talking, they connect it all to Marco, who tries to flee.
Well, Willis rats him out because he said he bought the gun from Marco.
Yeah.
And then Marco's at his locker, overhears this and tries to run.
We're leaving out a huge point that the gun was stolen out of Crazy Larry's locker.
Well, this is right where we learn it.
Yeah.
And then his friends are mortified. They say, Crazy Larry, you know we don't get involved in guns. Remember what happened to my brother? And as I watched the episode, I was like, is it going to be a laugh track? And then no laughter. So I was like, I guess something really serious did happen to him. So then everyone's talking this out. Arnold and Kimberly show up. Everyone's showing up here.
Well, the bullies leave.
Yeah, the bullies leave. One of the bullies look like Poe Dameron. That must be huge for you, Poe Dameron.
Oh, yeah.
Well, how come Arnold comes running in at the same time as Kimberly?
Because she's with him. She brought him there. She
From
said
the middle school? She picked him up at the middle school?
Whatever it was, she was like, he was really worried about you, so I brought him over here.
And then Arnold cracks his joke about since he cut school, can he go to the zoo?
Yeah.
And is that how it ends? Is that the last joke?
Yeah.
And then he says he has to go back to school. I guess he should go back to school.
Do
Do you notice? There's one thing that I notice.
Yes.
A bit of a continuity error. There's an extra in the background. A blonde girl wearing a denim skirt and red sweater top.
You got to find her.
She walks past so many times throughout the episode, like where she's just walking in a circle, that they just had that like two extras, and she just kept making the rounds. But her outfit stood out so much that she's so I guess she wasn't that noticeable to either of you, but
I believe it though. I believe it. I once was an extra in like a party scene, and the DP had to be like, Ed, get Ed to stop crossing. So I was like just small, like I was back and forth constantly.
But when like Gary Coleman runs back or leaves to go back to school, she crosses again. So it's like her sixth time.
Oh.
On two separate days wearing the same outfit. So the first day where Willis has to run in.
So how does this connect to 9/11 being inside job? Then the episode ends.
Yeah.
Directed by Garen Keith. Interesting guy.
Oh.
Pioneer, one of the first African-American sitcom directors. Directed many episodes of 227, 140 episodes of Diff'rent Strokes.
Whoa.
113 episodes of Martin. So he knows where the bodies are buried.
Oh, Martin.
What did you think of this episode?
I mean, I thought the writing was not as bad as I was expecting it to be.
I'm nodding. The viewer can't see it, but I've been nodding. It's like I thought the Diff'rent Strokes was going to be super cheesy, which of course it is, but it does seem on a higher level than some of the other shows we've watched.
Arnold is legit charming.
He is, yeah.
Like he still is. He still got it.
Still got it.
And I think, maybe they were like actually talented.
I think they were.
Yeah.
Wherever Gary Coleman is right now, looking down, I would just want to say,
he's doing
please,
security in heaven.
please rate and review the podcast.
How old was Gary Coleman at the time? Because for a kid actor, he actually was really good.
He wasn't a kid though. He was like already like.
He had that disease. Was he like 16? Yeah. And he looked like he was.
Yeah, he was already like in his teens.
So that explains. That's the trick to getting a good kid actor.
Yeah.
You need that disease.
A little controversy. There's a little controversy on the internet, I got to say. I don't like to wade into internet controversies, but Wikipedia says that he died when he was 42. Hollywood Reporter says died when he was 43. So get your facts straight.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if you got to end it with something better than that, Ed.
Yeah, I know.
Do you want to? I don't know.
I'm struggling.
What's? I don't know.
Did you like the theme song for this show?
Loved it.
Really?
Loved it.
You know what I noticed? I re-listened to the theme song. All I hear is Alan Thicke.
Yeah.
Wow. Now
his voice is so distinct now. Yeah.
The building that they show, like the outside shot, these, whatever establishing shot, that was right by my high school and my elementary school. So I'd walk by there all the time.
Wow.
Yeah. So like, I'd always be like, that's the building. I want to live in there. And obviously it's not even, it's a fucking set. But like, I was like, I see my fantasy on TV and then I can walk by my fantasy. What a weird feeling.
Maybe you'll get in there. Maybe you'll get in there someday.
Yeah, you think?
You'll have theirs and you'll have yours, and I'll